Volkswagen have been able to do two interesting things with this 2019 Jetta. They've made it cheaper, actually $100 cheaper than the outgoing model, and also higher tech than the outgoing model. And the way they've done this is through some clever budgeting. We're going to give it a TFL rating of buy it, lease it, rent it, or forget it. If you like this style of video and you want to see us do more of them, drop a comment below and tell us what you think. There's two big cost-cutting techniques that Volkswagen have used to make this new Jetta cost, well, just $18,545 at its base price. Now the first is that they've switched it to the MQB platform, which is a modular transverse engine mounted platform that's common throughout the Volkswagen lineup. The other big thing they've done is they've switched the rear axle back to a twisting beam suspension setup, so it's a semi-independent setup that it's frankly a lot cheaper to produce. Obviously the 2019 Jetta looks completely different from the 2018 model, and that's because Volkswagen has completely restyled this Jetta. Now, the thing you're going to notice the most is probably up front. It's the grille, and it's brand new. It looks to me just like the grille from the old Passat. It's big, rectangular, and then they've just stuck two triangles on the end of it. Go figure. Moving outwards from the grille, you'll notice these headlights, and they're all new for 2019, just like the rest of the car. But what's interesting is that they're actually standard LEDs on every trim level of the new Jetta, but they're not all the same kind of LED. You see, these upper trim levels, like the SEL and the SEL Premium, get LED projectors, but the lower trim levels get LED reflectors. Just a slight difference. While we're talking about styling, let's take a look at this paint color, because this color has actually been with the Volkswagen family since 1983. It's tornado red, and it made its debut on the Mark II Golf way back in the day. The next piece of styling I want to talk about is this sunroof. It's a panoramic sunroof according to Volkswagen, and it's black. And they've painted this little bit of the roof black as well to give the impression that this Jetta has a black roof. But then you get right about here and the black runs out and it just turns red again. It kind of looks like a receding hairline. Taking a look under the hood reveals yet more quirks about this 2019 Jetta. And the first thing you notice is that this hood is ridiculously heavy. And then the second thing you notice right after that is that it doesn't have hydraulic hood struts. It has this little flimsy metal piece. Now the third thing you notice is that this engine doesn't have a fake plastic engine cover. It's just exposed. And no, I haven't taken this one off and thrown it somewhere. It came to us like this, without an engine cover. Now speaking of this engine, it's a 1.4 liter 4-cylinder turbo that makes 147 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. But that horsepower figure is actually kind of interesting because it's 3 less than the outgoing model, yet Volkswagen have increased the MPG. So now it gets 30 MPG in the city and 40 MPG on the highway. And that's not just what the EPA tells us. We've actually tested that ourselves and we've seen those numbers exactly. Obviously in Europe, the Jetta would be available with a diesel motor. Now that's not the case here in the US, but what's funny is that you can see they still put a little hole for the diesel exhaust fluid, or the DEF tank. If you're familiar with other Volkswagen brand products like the Golf, you would expect this Jetta to have a logo back here that flips open to open the trunk, but that's not the case. It's just got a normal button underneath this little lid right here. Now the other weird thing is that since this logo doesn't flip open, the backup camera had to be moved under here. So I've been talking a lot about budgeting, and what Volkswagen have spent a lot of their budget on in this car is actually right in front of me. It's this dashboard. Now directly in front of me is a 10-inch LCD digital gauge cluster that's customizable and really awesome to look at, and right next to that is an 8-inch touchscreen infotainment display. Now they've saved money elsewhere to spend money on this. Something weird about this infotainment display, it's the volume knob, and the weird part is that the little power icon spins with the volume knob. So say you just want to turn up the volume a little bit, you're gonna throw off the angle of your logo. The other interesting thing about this infotainment is if you take a look at the driving data screen, you'll notice there's a little car and then a little icon that says range, and it tells you how much range you have left. But what's funny is that that little car moves from the left of the screen to the right of the screen as your range reduces, telling you how much fuel you have left. Another quirk about this 2019 Jetta is that it kind of has 2 sport modes. So you have this little driving mode button right here, and you can put it in sport mode, and what that does is it makes the steering heavier because it's an electric assisted unit, and it makes the throttle more responsive. The second sport mode is actually in the transmission. You can see right next to drive there's a button that says S, so when you put the transmission in drive, you can click it back one more time and it goes into sport mode. Now this just holds you in a lower gear for longer, basically. Well, now we're back here at the trunk because, well, check this out. When you open the trunk at first, it doesn't quite stay open. You kind of let it bounce around for a minute, but then you can actually click it open just like that. And once you have it open, it'll stay open. But if you don't get it up on that little stopper, won't close in front of your face. So you gotta keep it open. The reason that happens is because Volkswagen has fitted these cheap little spring mechanisms in here that aren't hydraulic struts. Now, it saves money, but it also makes your trunk lid kind of flop around. Once you have this trunk open, you'll notice, well, there's no handle to open up the little compartment where the spare tire should be, and that's because Volkswagen has cleverly hidden this opening in the carpet right here. You can actually barely see this little hole that opens up right about here, and that's how you get into the spare tire. But it honestly took me a good 5 minutes to find this opening, because when it's not open, you can't actually see it very well. It just blends right into the carpet. The last thing I want to point out in the trunk is actually the rear seats. Well, rather, it's how the rear seats fold, because you don't actually fold the rear seats from the main cabin. You fold them back here. There's these two handles inside the trunk that you pull, and the seats go down. Well, I was going to come back here and show you the exhaust tips, but there actually aren't any. You can see there's just no exhaust tip down here. If you move up to the SEL Premium, the highest trim level on the Jetta, you would get two fake exhaust tips that are covered in chrome, but really the exhaust just dumps out somewhere under here. Volkswagen is gunning for a young audience with this car, so one thing that they've done is included a customizable ambient lighting system. The ambient lighting actually has three different modes. There's off mode, in which no lighting is being done. Then there's automatic mode, which will change the lighting depending on what drive mode you're in. So if you're in normal mode, it'll be blue. If you're in sport mode, it'll be red, and so on. And then there's manual mode, which gives you the selection of any of 10 colors ranging from white all the way to pink. There's a couple more quirks and features I want to talk about in the center console here. Now, the first thing you'll notice is this big cubby space right in front of the gear selector. Now, on a Golf, this has a little folding door that you can open to get there, but here on the Jetta, you just have an open cubby. Now, if we move back a little bit, you'll find this cigarette lighter. Oh, nope, that's just a piece of plastic. Moving on, you have all these empty button slots, which isn't such a big deal if you're in a base trim level car, but this is the SEL model, which is second from the top basically, so it's a little confusing why there's, well, 5 empty buttons sitting here. I don't know what else you would put in these buttons. Moving back again, you have this little cubby space here, which is about the right size for a phone, but what's strange to me is that it looks about the shape of a manual handbrake. However, this car has an electric handbrake right up here. Last but not least is this center console. Now, previous Volkswagen center consoles would do this thing where you could kind of click them up and they would lock in place, and then you go all the way up and then you could close it, but not this one. It only has 2 settings. It has this level, and then if you flip it up, there's these little arms that just pop out and you can make it a little higher. Hopefully you don't have too big of sunglasses, because this little sunglasses holder is rather thin. It fits my normal glasses actually all right, no problems there. But if you have a big pair of sunglasses like our videographer Ian, you're in trouble, because those don't fit. Because my generation all exclusively loves rap music, Volkswagen has gone ahead and included Beats Audio in the 2019 Jetta. And we've been told that Dr. Dre himself sat in the Jetta and programmed the audio system. Here's something weird about the door cards. It's actually the way that Volkswagen has made them feel luxurious without having to spend too much money on trim. You can see here that there's this piece of leatherette and this triangular piece of leatherette and this top piece of soft touch material, but the rest of the door is a hard plastic. One weird thing I noticed is the placement of the air vents. See, on the outside air vents, well, they're kind of in a normal height where you'd expect them, but then when you move to the center ones, they're kind of staggered lower below the infotainment display. Now, it looks kind of weird, but that's not the biggest problem. It actually just feels weird having something blowing at you from the bottom and the top. Trim pieces are always important, but in something as budget focused as the Jetta, you can't be spending too much money on real aluminum, so Volkswagen has gone ahead and installed this plastic trim that just looks like it's metal. A couple more interesting things to note about the back seat of the Jetta, and the first thing is, well, I fit really well back here. That's because Volkswagen has made the 2019 Jetta a little bit longer than the previous model, which gives you tons of legroom here in the back. Now, the next thing I want to point out is right here, there's this weird indent that looks like it should have some sort of AC vent put into it, but there's nothing there. It's just a little design feature. The next thing you'll notice is right here in this plastic trim next to the seats, and it's kind of this weird cutout that Volkswagen has used to extend the armrest a little bit. It does provide a little extra space in this rear cabin area. Here's another strange one. Well, on the US model at least, there's no map pocket behind the driver's seat, whereas the passenger seat does have a pocket in it. Gather around, kids, for a brief history lesson on the Volkswagen Jetta. The Jetta was first introduced in 1979 at the Frankfurt Auto Show, and it has been in production ever since then. It's gone through the Mark 1, Mark 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now the Mark 7. Now, I mentioned earlier that it's the best-selling German car in the US, and that's true, but that might be changing soon. You see, Volkswagen sales have kind of flipped a little bit. Much like the rest of the industry, their SUVs and crossovers are beginning to sell more, while the sedans are selling a lot less. Now, that could be due to the fact that the outgoing model was quite old when it stopped production, but we'll have to see how sales pick up for the Jetta moving forward. I spent this video showing you the different quirks and features and places where Volkswagen has tried to save money, and the reason for that is because they're trying to spend money on technology. This car is packed full of tech for something that only costs $25,000. It has blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, a giant 10-inch digital gauge cluster, an 8-inch touchscreen infotainment display. What more could you want as a 20-something-year-old who's just looking for something comfortable and easy to commute in? As for my rating, well, I would tell you to buy it, and there's one key reason for that. With this 2019 Jetta, Volkswagen has introduced their People's First warranty, which is a 6-year, 72,000-mile warranty, which for this compact sedan segment is mind-bogglingly good. For the Fast Lane Car, I'm Michael Curtis. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you next time on the Fast Lane Car.